We have a president who said unequivocally, if you like your health care plan, you can keep it. Unless, of course, we decide that your plan doesn't fit our goals. And more recently, he said, Obamacare is the law of the land, unless I decide that I'm not going to obey it. And so he just decided yesterday that he was going to change a part of the law passed by Congress that calls for small businesses to be under the individual mandate, the corporate mandate. He says we're going to suspend that for a year or so. There's no way that a president should do that. Congress has said this is the way it is. You asked for this law, we gave it to you. Now Obama says, but I don't like it. I think we ought to change it.
Well, Obamacare has created, needless to say, serious political problems for Democrats. Even the major media say some of its defenders are not always telling the truth. John Waggy has the story.
The Senate's second highest ranking Democrat is under fire after saying Obamacare added millions of new Americans to the health care rolls.
10 million Americans have health insurance today who would not have had it without the Affordable Care Act. 10 million. And we can also say this, it is going to reduce the deficit more than we thought it would. We are seeing a decline in the growth of the cost of health care, exactly our goal in passing this original legislation.
But Monday's Washington Post fact-checker labeled the foundation of Durbin's remarks ridiculous, saying the vast majority of enrollees were previously insured. Republicans were quick to counter Durbin's optimistic claims.
Well, I can tell you that Senator Durbin can spin this all he wants, but I hear it from my constituents. They've been writing me concerned about higher health care costs, losing their plans with their doctor, and also just concerns about a disastrous rollout, gross incompetence.
Democrats say that when Americans see the law at work, voter fears will subside.
What we are going to see, we think, is that, first of all, costs are much less than we had predicted them to be. So it's actually costing us less. Healthcare costs have been driven down. There's now more health facilities available in our community. People are using emergency rooms less. All that's going to be positive on our economy.
But if it's not positive or voters don't think it's positive, Democrats run the risk of facing a single-issue tsunami in November's congressional elections. Republicans need to gain 6 seats to take control of the Senate.
In almost every case, the numbers that we're now looking at, whether it's the cost of insurance, the people that are uninsured, or the people that just simply aren't working full-time, is a bigger number and a harder to deal with number than anybody who voted for this law thought it would be. I didn't vote for it. I don't think it has the capacity to work, but all the numbers as they come out exceed the bad news that had been anticipated.
For now, Democrats hope the exemptions granted to businesses and some individuals will help put off much of the debate for the next election. John Waggy, CBN News.
Isn't it appalling? You've got men in office who aren't telling the truth, and we've had that forever in politics. There have been a bunch of liars. Mark Twain had some rather interesting statements to talk about the political class, but nevertheless, what we have now is lack of faith in government. I think that people are really turned off by government. Well, we can't control the weather, but I guess people would like to. We want to find out what's going on. And another major winter storm is heading for the East Coast and the South. John Jessup has that story from Washington. Here's John.
Pat, this could be the biggest storm yet in some areas. The forecast across the South calls for a dangerous mix of snow and ice. The storm is expected to dump more snow in Georgia than the 2 inches that paralyzed Atlanta 2 weeks ago. That winter storm created gridlock on interstates in Atlanta, forcing some people to sleep in their cars and trapping thousands of students in their schools. Now forecasters predict Georgia could see the most significant ice storm in 10 to 20 years. State officials say this time they're ready. Georgia's governor declared a state of emergency ahead of the storm.
We are making every effort to be prepared for these events. And I would simply say that we should all individually use extreme caution.
Temperatures and precipitation are expected to create an icy mess from northeast Texas into the Carolinas. Planned Parenthood is paying $2 million to the family of a botched abortion victim. In 2012, Tanya Reeves bled to death at a Planned Parenthood in Chicago. The Thomas More Society, a legal group based in Chicago, calls the payment hush money. Last year, the group filed a complaint requesting an investigation into the clinic responsible for the botched abortion, but no action has been taken. The Thomas More Society has renewed its call for stronger abortion clinic inspections and regulation in Illinois. Well, former child star Shirley Temple has died at age 85. Temple was the #1 movie star from 1935 to 1938, a record no other child actor has ever come close to. Her popularity has been credited for helping save 20th Century Fox from bankruptcy, but she once said her greatest roles were as wife, mother, and grandmother. She was married to Charles Black for 54 years and was also active in politics, holding several diplomatic posts and serving as ambassador to Czechoslovakia under the first President Bush when communism was overthrown. Pat, I understand you met Shirley Temple.
I did when I was right after the Iron Curtain fell and there was an opening in Eastern Europe. I was traveling in that area to see what we could do about establishing relationship and ministry and getting the program here on the air. And I had a meeting with her. She's a very lovely lady, and of course, I wanted to talk about Hollywood, and she wanted to talk about politics. But you know, you know, the child star thing, she'd long since passed. But she was one cute little girl, and without question,
incredibly talented child.
Dance and everything, and the American people loved her, and she was, you know, the #1 box office draw.
I think one of the most refreshing things about her was, with all that success, she seemed to always have her head on straight.
Well, she did, and she was a very successful ambassador. She was on all business and knew exactly what was going on. And I remember she said the air pollution is so bad in Czechoslovakia. I guess we're in Prague, and she said it's like smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Just breathing the air. It was just terrible. It was a nice time, and it was memorable, and I'm glad I had a chance to visit with her. John?
Pat, archaeologists have been making major discoveries at an excavation site in Israel, including a synagogue that Jesus may have visited. Chris Mitchell brings us that story from Galilee.
The village is called Magdala, the home of Mary Magdalene.
She lived here and she met Jesus here and she continued with him. Yes, it's the place.
Israeli archaeologist Arfin Najjar oversees the excavation at Magdala. He says the city lay hidden all this time by just a small layer of dirt.
Some place almost you touch the surface and you have the wall, waiting for us 2000 years when we were coming.
The most important discovery here in Magdala has been a synagogue dating back to the time of Jesus. According to archaeologists, it's the first synagogue uncovered in the Galilee.
An expression that appears many times in several places of the gospel. Jesus went around Galilee preaching in their synagogues. So this is the closest synagogue to Capernaum where he lived. So most likely he was here many times.
In it, they discovered a 2,000-year-old treasure. They call it the Magdala Stone, and some archaeologists say it's the most important discovery in decades. CBN News first reported on the stone just after it was uncovered in 2009. Father Kelly of the Catholic Order Legionnaires of Christ showed us a replica while overlooking the Temple Mount.
This particular Magdala stone is the most important discovery ever made related to the Second Temple, the temple at the time of Jesus, which Herod redid. So that's quite the statement.
The menorah on the stone is one of a kind, the first one discovered before the destruction of the temple in 70 A.D. The Legionnaires of Christ own the land and are building an entire center at Magdala with an archaeological park, hotel, and spiritual center. Father Solana dreamed up the project and wants it to be a center for all.
I'm pretty sure it's a gift for the world, for culture, for religions, for Israel, of course.
Visitors see the Bible come to life.
The altar is in the shape of a boat, a fisherman's boat. You're reminded of Jesus standing in the boat, preaching to the people on the shore.
So for me, the whole gospel story has come alive for me here, and it'll never mean the same ever again.
Father Solana sees the motto of the center, Duc in Altum, Latin for go into the deep, as a message for today.
Somehow Jesus tells to all of us, go into the deep, try again. You can't, go. So I think this is a beautiful message that the world needs in this moment financial crisis, problems with jobs, many situations, and we need to try again. God is on our side.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Magdala on the Sea of Galilee.
Pat, talk about literally bringing the Bible to life.
It's marvelous, and I commend the Israeli archaeologists. They keep discovering some amazing things. And I want to say, in terms of archaeology, I had a course in seminary called Biblical Archaeology. It was fascinating. And the findings of archaeology, to my knowledge, not one significant finding has disputed anything that's in the Bible. It's amazing how, over the years, the biblical narrative has lined up with the best the archaeologists give us. And this synagogue is just one more factor. Magdala, Mary Magdalene, I mean, it's just incredible. I went to a little synagogue up in Capernaum that was much similar to the thing, but the things are so tiny. I mean, those synagogues were just itty-bitty little things compared to what we're used to in churches today. But nevertheless, that's where Jesus went, that's where he taught, and that's where he performed miracles.
Well, Israel is so rich in these treasures.
Yeah,
I mean, everything you step on has history.
Well,
it's amazing.
My hat's off to the Jewish archaeologists are very sensitive, and they respect the ancient cultures, and it's just beautiful what they're doing.
Christian artist Carmen says he's cancer-free. He shared the good news on Facebook, telling friends and fans that it appears the rare form of cancer is now gone. He wrote, quote, "They took tests and could find no trace of cancer. That's amazing." He went on to thank his fans for their support and prayers. Quote, "You all have been the best friends, brothers, sisters, and prayer warriors I could ever hope for in this life." Carmen says he is still healing, but will be working on the release of his new album and an upcoming tour. Good for him. We're so happy. Well, another well-known name in Christian music, Darlene Zschech, updated fans on her battle with breast cancer. On her most recent blog, she wrote, she's finished round 1 of 5 chemo treatments, and all she can say is grace, grace, and more grace, even though she says she is losing some hair. She went on to say through this, she is learning to rest in every promise from Jesus. She told fans it's his word that is strengthening her. She also says writing has been a great comfort to her, and she plans to share songs birthed from this trial. We can't wait for that, Darlene. Our prayers are with you as well. And you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website, that's cbnnews.com.